What's going on, everybody? Now, I am not the person to say what is the right way or the wrong way to collect because there is not a right way or a wrong way to collect. You know, if you want to go after high grade stuff, great. Low grade stuff, great. Graded, ungraded, rare, not rare. It's all about you getting enjoyment from the hobby. That is without a doubt, I believe that to be true. I've done a lot of videos over the last month or two in particular that kind of talk about eye appeal and how I tend to collect, being cards that I think are undergraded that have good eye appeal. I get more value for my dollar, in my opinion. I get cards that look nice to my naked eye. And as a result, that's kind of what I enjoy. That's what I consider bargain hunting. That's fun for me. But that doesn't mean that cards that are not high in eye appeal, that are not, really pristine looking, are bad cards. And, a friend of mine called me the other day and he's like, Greg, we should talk sometime about cards that have flaws and seeing the beauty in the flaws, because they're not cards that should just go in the garbage. They're great cards. They're beautiful cards. They're just not cards that maybe have the same eye appeal as others. And I totally agreed. And I absolutely felt like he was bringing up a great point. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to have my friend Chris from Missouri on. I'm sure you know Chris. He's so recognizable. He is an absolutely outstanding human being. He is a fabulous person. And I am thrilled to call him a friend. And I'm thrilled to welcome him back to the channel to have a conversation about seeing the beauty in cards that might have some issues that other people don't see the beauty in. And it's something that I've learned to do myself. I think that you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And I think that there's a lot of things that Chris has to say and that we talk about that really get you to think about how you collect, and that there certainly isn't a right or a wrong way. Check this out. I really, really think you're going to enjoy it.
All right, guys, as I just said a second ago, a great guest on today. I am thrilled to have Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to be on your channel one more time. This is great.
I think it's the first of many more times, if I were to guess. I have a feeling we'll get to do this a lot in long into the future, is my hope, at least.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah. And now, so we kind of were talking, and you gave me a phone call, and we were talking because we do that from time to time. We just kind of talk as friends too, and one of the things I thought was an outstanding point that you made in the phone call, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'll summarize, and then I'll ask you if I kind of summarized it well. But it's if whenever we're looking at cards, if a card that has any obvious flaws is a card that a lot of people just go, "Oh, that's junk. I don't want that in my collection." Then what we're kind of doing is we're putting the scarlet letter on a bunch of cards that are actually really cool cards that have a lot of character and would look great in a lot of people's collection. And we just kind of wanted to talk about how it's okay to have cards that aren't perfect. Is that, would you say that's accurate?
I believe it is accurate. The one thing you said there that I would like to add to, you said would be okay in our collection. I use the term fit when I pick up a card. Does that card fit in my collection? Was I going after that card? Was it one of the cards on my list? And wow, am I glad to have that card no matter what that card is. Now I do have some boundaries a little bit, but yeah, I think you summed that up. You summed it up pretty good for me.
Now, let me ask you right there. You said that there are some boundaries. So, what is a Chris from Missouri boundary when looking for cards for your collection? it's a card that you want, and it's a card that, you've been searching for, but there are boundaries. What are some of the boundaries for you?
Well, so there's some things I like more than more than other things. For instance, I like a centered card better than most of my categories. But it's relative to me in pricing. I'm I'm gonna someday pick up a 52 tops Mickey Mantle. Matter of fact, I kinda have, but I'm gonna get one on my own, and I will I will look past a great deal of stuff to be able to have that particular card in my collection. One, my dad passed away a long time ago, but he was a card collector after I was, and his favorite player was Roy Campanella, but his second favorite player was Mickey Mantle. And if I could get a 52 tops Mickey Mantle that my dad never had, I don't care what it looks like. So, I don't want a card that's you can't see the player. I don't want a card that is chopped off or terribly off center. But as long as it's the right price and I can afford it without putting my family in any danger of me not paying a bill or not helping out, then the card is going to go into if I see that card, whatever that card is, it's going in my collection.
Now, one of the things, it's funny, you've said each of these phrases a couple of times. And I'm taking notes as you're going. So if I'm looking down, don't think I'm not listening to you. I'm listening so intently, I'm writing things down to help me as we move forward. But, you know, you say on your channel, like one of my favorite things is when you do a pickup video, you go to a card show or you get an SGC return and you've got your little dark little wooden card stand, which when you set the card on there, it has this, it hits a note that is just like a beautiful note to me. I love the sound of it that it makes. There it is. Now, did you make that, or was that a gift, or where'd that come from?
Well, I own a company that stains and paints doors, and that's all we do. I get 20 employees, and one of my workers is a card collector, and he watched me do a video, and he said, "Well, we're going to take some parts and put together a stand for you." So he put together that stand, and so that was given to me by a foreman that'll be watching this. His name's Andy, so I love it.
Awesome.
It works out perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love the stand. And one of the things that I like is whenever you take a card, you put it on the stand, and as you're talking about it, and two things you say a lot. You say a lot is, "I'm happy to have it," and you say, "It's a beautiful card. It's a beautiful card, and I'm happy to have it." You say that continuously when you're showing off your stuff, and it's always hit sort of a sweet spot for me when I'm watching your videos, because it's, a lot of the cards that you'll show that you pick up might be like a 3 grade or something, and it might be off center, or it might have, an issue that other people wouldn't like, but you'll still see through that, and you'll say, "Yeah, it's a beautiful card. I'm happy to have it." And there are probably people at home going, "That's not a beautiful card." But I think that you're able to see past the flaws and see the things about it that do make it beautiful. And I hope that that's what my wife continues to do moving forward. Yeah,
My wife
but
had to do that from the start. So
right, right. So yeah, so I love that. And I also think, you have a lot of characteristics that I enjoy, like my buddy Mookie has, which is that when you have a flaw or see a flaw, like what Mookie collects pinhole cards, right? And I have some pinhole cards that where is it, right there, that he gave me. And the thing that he likes to do is it's like a CSI episode. When he picks one up, he'll talk about how there's lots of pinholes and what that means, and that there's a bend in it at a certain spot, and that's because they looked at it while it was still pinned up. And he actually sees a pinhole as a sign of love, because the person liked the card so much that they pinned it up so they could see it all the time. And instead of seeing that as like a negative, because the joke that my dad and I always had, or it was more my dad's joke than mine, is he said that a pinhole in a card was the death penalty for the card. It was like, for him, that was something he just couldn't take a pinhole. But as he's watched, because he watches Mookie's channel too, as do I, and he talks about it, and there's such a love affair with the story of the card that I'm finding myself completely turning. And that's one of the things I like about the YouTube community is I don't want to watch people who just think like I think. I want to listen to people who have a variety of opinions and hear what they think, because they might change my opinion on stuff and they might open my eyes to things that I hadn't previously had them opened to. And that's why I really like this conversation that we're having here, because it's not about a card having a flaw that somebody's like, nope, it's out. It's somebody else might see the exact same card and go, that one's perfect. And it doesn't mean that either person's wrong. It just means that we all see different things through our own lens.
Well said. Well said. Now, I do say that a lot on my channel, but you'll also hear me say that, this might be a lower grade, but it's my lower grade and it's my card, and we all can't. At the end of most of my videos, I say collect what you like, and I truly mean that. And I don't want to change what somebody likes. I just want to show them that pinhole that you just talked about. That pinhole has made it able for me to pick up Willie Mays rookie card. In that pinhole costs the grade to go down, costs the value to go down, and boy, I jump on that, and now I have it, and I love that card. And I don't know, I'd have probably been able to get one in a better grade, but again, it's not the grade to me, and it's having the card, and I love it. I love knowing that it had a story to it. If it was a perfect card, it doesn't have a story to it as much. I mean, it has a little bit of a story to it. I don't want to go age my cards and tear them up, but it gets a little personal with me. I do not like it when I set up at shows every once in a while, and my cases at shows are growing because it's getting better and better, because my collection is getting better and better. But I just don't like it when somebody comes over to my table and they look at a card and the first thing they start saying is, "Oh, I like that card a lot, but look at this. It's not centered well enough. Will you take a little bit off? It's got a little snow on it. Will you take a little off?" And right now it's making it personal to me, because he's now downgrading my card, which he wants to pick up. And I don't think that kind of person deserves my card. And that's, if I see a guy kicking a dog, I'm not going to give him one of my puppies to have, and, but I get why some people want that higher collection or higher graded stuff. But to me, it does. I love having it, So
now, a second ago, you said it's not about the grade, which I think most of us in our outward words would say it's not about the grade, it's about the card. But then I also think that a lot of people, it is more about the grade than people will maybe even admit to themselves. Like, they will say, no, buy the card, not the grade. But then they'll see a card they really like and it has a low grade, and they'll be like, is this, I don't know, it is kind of a low grade. I mean, it's like if you had two cards side by side and they looked exactly the same, but one was in a 3 holder and one was in a 5 holder, pretty much everyone would pick the one in the 5 holder just because of the 5 holder, even if the one in the 3 holder looked a little bit better than the one in the 5 holder. They kind of lean toward the 5. And it's sort of like the thing in high school when there's the girl you think is cute, but everybody else thinks a different girl's cuter, and you're just like, well, I kind of think that one's cute over there, and it's like, it's the pressure of that, I think it's real.
I agree. I agree, but usually we both most people that have cards that have them slabbed use the grade as a reference, though. If in this a descriptive reference, because if I tell you, and we're talking on the phone, and I say, man, I just picked up a 1954 Hank Aaron, and you know how I am about all the cards, and I say, man, it's a beautiful card. I don't mind if you follow up, because my eyes are different than your eyes. I don't mind you following up saying, what grade is it? And I say, oh, it's a 3. Well, you kind of now have that in your mind, what a 3 looks like. It might, if I tell you I have a 9 in a rookie, in a some older rookie, you're going to say, wow. But that's just, you haven't seen it yet, but that's just a reference point. Because, and it is with me. You might be saying, wow, that's an expensive card, but to me, I think you're also saying, wow, that's a beautiful card. And if I describe it, I love it. It's beautiful, well-centered, whatever, but it's just a 2. I would trust what you say, that it's a beautiful card, but now I also am using that 2 as a reference and a description. And
I think that's really,
love it any less,
I think that's really well said. And I think what it kind of boils down to is a grade is an adjective. It's a descriptive piece. It's not the only description. And that's the thing that I was on a kick on about 6 months ago, that I was really trying to get people to consider, is that, the grade is assigned. It's not a fact. It's an adjective from a grader. If it was a fact, it would be a noun. The grade is not a noun. The grade is an adjective. It is a description about the card from one person, or arguably 2 people's opinion. And if it's okay for us to disagree with that adjective and come back and say, I know that they're describing it as a 6, but I see it as an 8. So I'm going to buy it at 6 prices, which is an advantage if you're willing to actually see it through your own eyes, to buy a card you think looks like an 8 for a 6 price. There's in that realm, you can actually come out ahead from this whole grading thing. You can get better cards more affordably if you're finding cards that look like 8s that are graded as 6s.
Agreed.
Now, go ahead.
Well, so when I go look for cards, I'm pretty impatient. I mean, I'm 57 years old. I plan to be collecting for a long time, but I don't have as much time collecting as a 30-year-old. And so my wife has a T-shirt that says, she's a big hiker and camper and whatever, and she's got this shirt that says, I haven't climbed all the mountains, but it's on my list. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't have all the baseball cards, but they're on my list. Mm-hmm. And so, I might not spend as much time at these shows looking at cards and critiquing them, but if something catches my eye and it's on my list, I'm going to learn to love that card, whether that card's a 2 or a 7. Mm-hmm. And yes, if I can pick up a 2 at the price, if I can pick up a 5 and 2 are the same price, the 2 might look a little bit better. I probably will pick up that 2, but the value of my collection is also important. Mm-hmm. When we were kids collecting cards, a lot of us, I bet 90% told our parents, this is going to be worth money someday. And so we've always had that in there. So that might sway me a little bit. Because I'm again, we say this, I'm temporarily holding these cards for somebody else. And the reason I have these cards slabbed, whether they're ones, twos, fives, or sevens, is I have an end game. And what that end game is for it to make it easier for my wife to sell if she doesn't want to collect cards after I'm gone. And so that's my end game, and I'm trying to make it easier for her. But that doesn't mean I'm stopping my collection right now at the age of 57. I want my collection to grow. I do wish that at times that I was a little bit more patient. But I can tell you, I get disappointed if I go to a show and I see a card and I say, "Oh, I should pick that card up, but no, I think I might find one better." And I leave that beautiful card sitting there and I don't pick it up because now, I just left the puppy at the pound. I should have picked that puppy up and brought that thing home.
Now, I had a question this week on my Wednesday video that was a tough question. Do you tend to make snap decisions that you sometimes regret? Or do you not buy the card and regret not buying it? Like, which of those things happens more? That you buy the card you shouldn't have, or that you didn't buy the card that you should have?
Okay, I can tell you this 100%. I've never bought a card and got home and said, "Oh man, I'm so disappointed I bought this card." Never. I can't think of an instance. Now, I can tell you this: I left Strongsville disappointed, and it was one of my best time. It was my best time ever at a card show, seeing everybody and the closeness of everybody and all that kind of stuff. But I can tell you, I left the card show driving home, going, "Dang!" And you were part of it. And I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but we were walking around and we were running into everybody, but you and I weren't walking around together just for a little bit. But I came across a play ball Joe DiMaggio. And if you remember this play ball Joe DiMaggio, it had a little left on its right leg down low, had a red mark. Do you remember this card now that I'm talking about?
You're talking about a 1941 play ball, right?
I'm sorry. 41. I said 48.
Yeah.
Didn't I?
No, you didn't say a year. You just said play ball. I remember you being at a 41 play ball, and you asked. I was around, and I stopped and I took a look at the card with you, and you said, "What do you think of this card?" And I think that Darren was with me, and we looked at it with you for a few minutes. Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so I didn't the card. The card was on my list to pick up there, and it was one of the top tier cards on my list, and it was in the right price, and you saw that, and Darren saw that, and you both pointed that out to me, which if you were asking me what I thought of something that you looked at, I would be, okay, look at this. You got better eyes than I do. So I didn't just take your guys' word for it because, I went walking off, and I had one of my friends, Tom, he looked at it with me that I brought with me, and he said, "Oh, that red mark bothers me." And my friend Brent, "Oh yeah, that red mark bothers me." So I bought some other cards, but when I drove home, I thought, here I still have the money in my pocket. I didn't spend that money. And I was disappointed that, one, I came home with money, and two, I didn't come home with that card. But to answer that question, I really, if I bought a card at a show at any time, I've never been disappointed in buying that card.
Have you, now in that particular situation, have you thought about reaching out to that dealer? I mean, I know what dealer it was.
Yeah, and I'll see him around. I'll see him at another show or two, and he will remind me he has that card still.
Yeah.
But I hope he still has that card, because then I can say, you can't even sell that card. I'll take it off your hands for less money.
Right.
But
Right.
but but yeah, maybe I've been disappointed when I did a trade a little later, as especially when I was younger. If I traded a card away to another guy, and we were both happy during the time of the trade, and then I thought about that, and I might have been disappointed in that, getting whatever that card was. I may have given up more than what I should have for that card. So I could have been maybe have been disappointed that way, but never can I think of a time that I was disappointed buying a card at a show.
I got one last question, then I want to start looking at some cards with you. So you and Mike Moynihan do your Showcase Showdown, and I know how much you love it because you're absolutely beaming from the time the video starts to the when it ends. And honestly, most of the time I watch Showcase Showdown, I watch because I get so much joy watching how much fun you're having. Even when you're losing, you're having a blast, and it's fun to see that. But that game, the way you guys have that game structured, is the grade matters, and the grade can determine whether you win or lose. And so I think there have been times probably where if you lined up all of the cards side by side and you said, which would you rather have, right? That yours would have been the preferred one, even though Mike's maybe had a better grade, and vice versa, I'm sure. But is that difficult to play that game where it's putting a value judgment on the card based on the assigned grade on it? Like, is that part of that game difficult?
That's a super question. I don't like the fact that you asked me that question, but I'm going to answer this honestly.
Okay.
But first of all, I love that show. I love doing it. Mike and I have a good rapport together, and there's no jealousy on my part. If you watch, we've done 23 shows maybe, and I've had almost all the cards. So, there's only been a couple times that I haven't, there's some times I don't have the card graded, but I think I've only not have like 3 total cards and all that kind of stuff. So that makes me proud of my collection.
Yeah.
But being in a competition like that, I'm going to let something out of the bag here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not me flexing at all, because Lord knows I've gotten beat enough times that I have nothing to flex about. But we're getting ready to do a show. We're doing a Showcase Showdown, and the competitor in me had to think of okay, I'm tired of losing. I got to win this one because more people's watching. So I've gone out and become a collector that I did not want to be. I've actually purchased some cards that I already have, just so I can compete in Showcase Showdown. And the day after Showcase Showdown, those cards are getting back out. I'm getting back out of that, selling them, and taking that money to the national. That's how low that competition has made me sink. But yes, again, I can do that. I'm in a position that I can do that, and I know up front. But it's the fun competitor in me, and I'm not going to go out and buy brand new Tony Olivas because Tony Oliva is going to come up sometime, or something brand new in a higher grade. But just this one time, I thought, okay, I'm going to become that person that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And but the grade doesn't matter so much, but it matters. And what makes that matter more is that's one of the most fun times that I have, showing cards. And, I can't tell you how many texts I get from guys saying, man, you can borrow my cards if you want to. I got a couple of those cards, or, hey, let me send you this. That'll help you out. But listen, all that's fun and stuff, but the grade should matter. Let's end that one like this. The grade doesn't matter to me except when I'm playing showcase shows.
That's well said too. All right, so we had talked about looking at some cards, and I said, why don't you pull 5 cards? And I pulled 5 as well. That some people might see as not a desirable card, but you see past that. And so, why don't you show me the first one and kind of tell me, why did that one stick out? Why did you pick that card as one that others would look past, but you think it's great?
Okay, I'm torn here on what 5 cards to show, but I'm going to show one that's not graded yet, and I caused the flaws on this card. This is my first vintage card that I ever received, and it was given to me, of course, because I didn't know, I wasn't alive in 50 open up these packs. But I'm showing you is this Eddie Matthews. Now, if you look over there by the logo up top, you're going to see a rubber band mark.
Mm-hmm.
I put that rubber band mark there because this card, when I was collecting, I put them in rubber bands because that's how everybody else did. But
Mm-hmm.
none of my friends had 54 oversized cards. So when I put all my Braves together, it was my only oversized card, and I wrapped that rubber band around there just like my friends did, but I shouldn't have. But that card I love. But here's the card. Here's the card to really start it. This is a Hank Aaron 54 Hank Aaron in a 2. There's like a mini crease on that thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's faded a little bit. Now here I'm showing you all the flaws, just like I tell you
Right.
that I hate people doing. But this is for this show.
Yeah.
But listen, if this thing was perfect, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
But this thing made its way into my collection, and I can't. If somebody has a 10 out there, I sure I would trade them. Well, I would trade them maybe, but I'm just as proud of this card as somebody else is about their 54.
Yeah.
Hank.
No, that is a beautiful card, and I love the story about the Eddie Matthews. And if somebody's listening and not understanding what he means about the oversized cards were not a standard size until, was it 57?
57.
So 54s are a little bit bigger, so they fit a lot tighter. Like if you have a card saver 2, they don't really fit in there. You need a card saver 1 for them because they're bigger. So if he had a bunch of cards from his childhood and then he had this one that was bigger, it would be hanging over the edge a little, a half inch on each side. And so the rubber band would just destroy the card. Now, how old would you say you were when you got that Eddie Matthews card?
9, 8 or 9.
And so what year would that have been? You said you were 52, so I'm not going to do that.
75, 76.
So, and do you remember who gave it to you?
So yes, I do. A guy named a fellow named Gary, who was very important to me as far as growing my baseball knowledge. He was a senior in high school, or at that time he was probably a junior, and he ended up being a coach of mine later on, that kind of stuff. But he gave me that. But it was during that time period that I actually mowed yards. About a year after I got that card, I actually mowed yards, and I picked up what is, I call the Dufresne collection. Instead of paying me money to mow her yard, she paid me in her son's cards that had moved out of the house, 10 years, 20 years earlier. And so I ended up with a great vintage collection that I played with, but from an early age.
So let me ask you this, just to put this in perspective. If you were to put that card out at a card show, not that you would, what kind of price tag do you think would be appropriate for that card, that Eddie Matthews?
What kind of card would be appropriate to get out of mine?
What kind of price do you think that card? What is that card worth to just, if it's an average person on cards on the table? What do you think that's worth? Maybe $5?
$5, maybe $5. And it'd have to be somebody trying to finish a Matthews run.
If somebody offered you $100 for that one right there, would you take $100 for it?
No, no.
Yeah. And I think that that says everything, is that everybody, the meaning behind cards, so how you got the card, the story behind the card, the look of a card could be completely different for two people. Now, I'm going to show you a card. Um, and I don't know, I don't know how many of my videos you've seen or what you remember or any of that, but I've talked about this card once on my channel, and I actually went over to my dad's house yesterday, knowing that we were going to talk today, and got this card. This is actually my dad's card, but I've told my dad since I was 14 years old that the only card that I want for sure from his collection is this card. Okay. Now, this card right here, I don't know if you'll recognize this or if you'll remember this story. Do you see the card, Chris?
I do. I do.
So this is a Dodgers backstops card, and it's not a valuable card. But if you look at the bottom, do you see what it says there written on there, Chris? Can you see that?
It's not coming out very good, and plus I have bad eyes. But is that a number?
It says Mike M.
Mike M. Okay.
So when my dad was in college, his mom passed away, and his dad sold the house and basically left everything in it. And it's just like, I need a clean start. And his cards were in there. And so his cards were in the house, and they just left. He just left, gone. And, obviously my dad's in college, and my dad's dealing with his own grief and stuff. So he never really knew what happened to his baseball cards. Well, fast forward to, this is probably about 1991, when baseball card shops were popping up all over the place. And we were in Sacramento for something, which is where my dad grew up, an older part of Sacramento. And we're driving down the road about 2 miles from his old house. And we see a card shop, and we're like, hey, let's stop. Let's look at the card shop. It's a card shop. We didn't even know it was there, but we saw it on the side of the road, and we drive by, and we go in, and we're looking around the shop. And my dad at the time was putting together a 59 and 60 set. So whenever we'd go anywhere, if they had 59 and 60s commons, he'd go through them. So he's going through this box of 59 and 60s commons. And I walk over, and he has this card pulled out. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, why does he want that card? It's beat up. That's what my eyes saw, right? And he looked like he had seen a ghost. He looked like he had seen a ghost. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I'll tell you when we leave. Like, okay. So he ends up buying the card. It was like 50 cents or $1. We get in the car, and I say, what's the deal with the card? He goes, that's one of my cards. And I go, how do you know that's one of your cards? He goes, it has my name on it. He goes, it's Mike M. He goes, that's my handwriting, and that's what I used to do to my cards. So somewhere along the line, somebody ended up with my dad's cards. Somehow this shop ended up buying at least part of that collection. And so the one card from my dad's childhood collection that he still has now is this card. And a lot of people would see this card and go, that's a piece of junk. I wouldn't want that card. You could offer me $1,000 for this card, and there's no way on earth I would possibly sell that card to you for $1,000,
Right.
because of the story behind the card and how it was acquired and how just everything about it. Just like some cards that are gifts. Another card that I pulled, I'll show now. So this is a Sandy 58 Sandy Koufax in a 5.5. It's got great color. It's fairly off center. It's maybe 75-25 side to side. Corners are decent. It's a pretty nice card, actually. So this card is special to me because, a couple of years ago, my dad was at an estate sale, and he found a shoebox full of cards and bought the shoebox full of cards. I know most people have probably seen that video at this point. And that card came from that collection. And a bunch of the cards we sent off for grading, and a bunch of the cards he sold, and some of the cards he kept. And this is a card from that. And this is a card that's special to me because this is the one card that I kept from that estate sale collection. So some people would see this and go, yeah, it's off center, not good enough for me. I'm a centering guy. I don't want that card. But to me, the story behind the card makes that card super special, just like your Eddie Matthews, your 54 Eddie Matthews that you just showed, is how you got it, the story behind it. Doesn't matter what it looks like. There's so much more to a card than its present condition, And
Agreed.
so those are two examples that I grabbed to show that. All right, show me another one of the cards that you pulled out and tell me about it.
Okay, so I pulled this one out. This is a 1949 Leaf, Ted Williams. Now I'm going to get this pretty close. Do you see the line across the middle of it, and then the line straight down, like somebody had it folded up and put in the pocket, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this card means a lot to me, but it has nothing to do with this card. And so the reason I wanted to pull this off, one, it looks good. I mean, it looks good when I look past the creases in that card. But to some people, they're going to see that thing and they're going to say, no, I don't want that card, and I don't want it in my collection. Well, that means they don't have it in their collection right now, and I do. So I'm pretty proud of it that way. But why that card means a lot to me is first time I went to the National, I went with two really young guys from the card shop, from a local card shop here close to me. And they had been to a National before, and they knew how much I loved vintage stuff. And they just prepped me for how much vintage stuff and how overwhelming. And and I told them, I said, listen, I'm going to walk around that show. And I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to look at everything before I buy a card. And they said, no, you're not. And they're 22, 23-year-old kids. And they said, no, you're not. And so they filmed me going in there. And I seriously went to the very first table, and bought a 1949 Leaf Ted Williams.
Wow.
Not this Ted Williams, though. Not this Ted Williams, because I bought a Ted Williams, and they made fun of me. And I mean, like, oh yeah, you're going to wait. That took 5 minutes. Okay, you better take your time going to the second table. I mean, they're getting hard. And so what I ended up doing, and the reason I like this particular card is not just that, but we're getting ready to leave the last day of the show, and I had that Ted Williams, and these guys have been making fun of me, and I took that particular Ted Williams that I bought first, and I traded it for a 1933 Lou Gehrig, and the Ted Williams that I got at the table was better shape than this one, but I didn't bring it home yet, so it didn't really mean quite as much to me because I didn't have it with the rest of my collection. So I traded that Ted Williams for a Lou Gehrig that's behind me, but it didn't take me long to pick up this Ted Williams after I got.
Now that's amazing. So you pick up a card at the first table at the first National, and then you don't even get home with the card. You trade the card before the show's even over. That's amazing.
To the guy at the last table that I went to.
Oh my! So before you left the show,
yes,
so you carried that card from the first table at the show to the last table at the show, but not before or not after. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Oh man! All right, I'm going to show a couple more now. Now, one thing I kind of like, and a lot of people would say, you had mentioned earlier, I have boundaries on my collection, and there are certain things that I can't handle. There are certain things that I actually like that other people dislike. And one of the things that I actually like, and it'll be hard for you to see on this screen, but this is my Gale Sayers rookie. and it's going to be really hard to see. But along this side on the Gale Sayers rookie, it has a real rough cut. And
I've seen you show that one before and talk
yeah,
about that rough cut. Yes.
and to me, the reason a card gets a rough cut is because, at the end of the printing, cycle, the blades would get, they weren't, in a lot of cases, I think they were strings, right? But the cutting whatever the cutting instrument was, would get dull, and it would not cut as cleanly. It would cut more. It's sort of like old scissors, right? That would cut, and they wouldn't cut as sharply because they're old. And so it would get dull, and as a result, that would happen. But to me, when I see a card that has that, like on this Gale Sayers rookie card, to me, in the day and age that we're currently in, where there's all this doctoring going on to cards, that there's all these, soaking and whatever they want to call them, that it tells me this card wasn't messed with. This card is as is, because anybody that would doctor a card, that would probably be a pretty easy thing to remedy if someone wanted to remedy it. So to me, it's like, it just screams authentic and authenticity and legit. And so when I see cards, and I have a few cards like this, when I see cards that have a rough cut, it bugs me 0%. It says, this is what it looked like when it came out of the pack. And, and again, I'm not trying, just like you said earlier, you said, I think I wrote it down. You said, I don't want to change somebody's mind on something, but I'm not trying to tell anybody that a rough cut is better than a straight cut, because a clean edge is nice too. It's just a different kind of beautiful. And I like both personally. I like rough cuts, but I also like clean edges too. And I just think that if somebody sees a rough cut, just know you're not alone if you find that to be appealing. Like, some people might go, I don't want that. Look at the edge. That edge is bad. I look at it and go, that's cool. That's authentic.
Yeah, great. That's great, because that would give somebody a reason by you saying that would give somebody a reason maybe to look at it the same way that you look at it and understand it the same way that you understand it. You might not change somebody's mind, but at least they'll see, okay, other people think the way that I think. I think
and to me, it's like, whenever I give my opinions, and I do my Q&A things, it's really my Q and opinions, and all I'm doing is, I love talking about this stuff. I think it's fun to talk about different people's strategies and different thoughts. And I by no means think that I have the best collection, that I am the smartest person in the room, that I'm the most knowledgeable person, that the cards I buy are good and the cards other people buy are bad. Like, neither you and I are very similar in that. Like, we are not dogmatic in our beliefs about collecting. We just love it, and we love talking with other people about it. And, there are people, in the community that have very strong opinions, and they think some people have really bad opinions, and they think their opinions are really good opinions. And that's not me. Like, if someone buys a card 98 2 centering and they love it, I don't look at it and go, this guy's crazy. He bought that card. I don't look at it like that at all. I get excited for the guy. At Strongsville, it was so much fun walking around and somebody go, oh, check out what I just bought. And like being excited to go, oh man, like, one of our friends bought a 48 leaf or 49 leaf Jackie Robinson. And I was thrilled for him.
Right.
And
he was pretty excited himself.
Oh, he was on cloud 9, and I mean, he was so happy, and I was so happy for him. It was really, really cool to see that. I mean, you said, hey, come on, check out my cards. We went up to your room and you laid them all out on your bed, and we looked at all the stuff that you picked up. I mean, that was so much fun. It was so much fun. All right, so what else you got for me?
Okay, how many more cards you want me to show? Because I really want to.
You've shown, I think, 3, so I'm hoping for at least 5. So 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, I put out more than that, but I've narrowed it down to 3. So this one I wanted to show just because, again, it's a 1, but
Mm,
this card is 1938. This is
yeah.
a 1938 Joe DiMaggio rookie card, and uh, I love this card. I have a freaking 1938 Joe DiMaggio rookie card. When
Yeah.
I was when I was 15 years old, I could not afford this card. There was just no way. And I knew there was one with little squibble things on there, and I
Hmm.
knew there was one without it, and I wanted this one. And
Hmm.
when the opportunity came around and met that card, I was not going to let that card out of my sight. And I brought that card home, and excited as can be. And
When did you
that
buy that?
so that was purchased probably 4 years ago.
Where
Um,
was it, at a big show?
it was. So let me make sure. Let me think about this so I don't on a video when I showed it. It was at a big show. So I believe it was 3 years ago at the National because I I was like a kid in the candy store at that my first National that I went to, and I remember my I can watch an old video of Mike's because it was live at a meet and greet that I was not doing videos yet, and he was going through some of my cards. And matter of fact, James Elite
Elite.
Hunters,
Yeah.
he took a video of me getting this card as well. So yes, so 3 years ago at the National,
So was that one Atlantic City or was that Chicago?
Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a beautiful card, and the heavily rounded corners on that card, I think shows a pride of ownership. It shows how much the person absolutely loved having it. Whoever had it for a long time is like, they showed that thing off. They handled that thing a lot. I could see that in someone's sock drawer, and hey, check out my DiMaggio card. And I mean, it's like, and that's another reason why, when you look, a lot of people will look at pop reports and they go, oh man, there's so many. Why aren't there any mantles and mazes in the high grades? It's because they're trying to control the population of them, and I don't know what they're doing or not doing, but you know what? The mantles and mazes got showed off more than all the other cards. It's
sure did.
easier to find a Harvey Schmaltz, in a good condition than it is to find a Mickey Mantle, because the Mickey Mantle was on the top of the pile with the rubber band around it, and it was the one that people showed off to people all the time. So one of the reasons the population is lower is because people handled them, and
Yeah,
that card was handled, and that's part of why it's beautiful.
yeah, and they weren't handled with John Mangini's little white gloves that he has. These were 12-year-old kids that went to the drugstore and got a little soda pop, and so they got sweat and all this kind of stuff, and they're opening that cards and they're handing it back, showing it to each other, and they're wiping their noses and handing it. I mean, it has a story, and there was nothing to really protect them back then, and
Yeah.
no one thought about protecting them much back, or most people didn't think about protecting them back then.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love it.
All right, show me another one.
Okay, so this one, I don't know if you knew this, but I was a high school basketball coach and a college basketball coach for almost 20 years. And so if you were thinking about the most iconic card in the basketball, some might think the Bill Russell or something, but I always wanted this Michael Jordan.
Mm,
Now, if you look, that's authentic. And
mhm.
it's not authentic because somebody cut it. It's authentic because somebody didn't like it. There's more creases on this card than almost any card that I have, but it's hidden very well. But
Really?
there's all kinds of creases on that thing, and it's got even a spider crease. And it's just hard to tell. I got to get it up right next to here to see it.
So you think someone
But
was a Pistons fan or something?
I truly do, and
Yeah.
that's the story that I had when I was in college. I had a college buddy that we would, we guys would get together and play poker a lot, nickel dime poker and stuff. I'm not going to win student of the year, or, my mom's not going to like hearing that, but we played a lot of poker. And this kid had a Larry Bird, Michael or Magic Johnson rookie card, and the card I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he won it in the poker game, and what did he do? He took that card and he folded it in half, folded it again, and stuck it in his wallet. And for years, that was his lucky card. And I wish I could get. I haven't talked to him forever. I wish I knew if he had that card, because I would get that card and slab that card, just because of knowing I was there watching him get that. But this, I tell the story. This had to be a Detroit Pistons fan or a Celtics fan, or maybe even a LeBron James fan, because I haven't had this card very long, maybe 7 years, 5 years, something like that. But when I had an opportunity to get this one or a BVG 6.5, and they were almost the same price, but because they were very underpriced, the guy needed the money and he didn't care which one I took. And I said, well, why don't you give me this one? And I love to have it in my collection, because if I wasn't I'm afraid you're taking notes, so you're going to 5 years from now you're going to bring it back up. But this way, when somebody does come over and they look at it real hard and they see that why it's authentic, I get to tell them, well, who do you think did that? It had to be somebody that didn't like Michael Jordan. So
in a way, you almost like the fact that it was beat up because of the story that you've kind of created that goes along with it.
Sure. Yes, sure. And, and also money had something to do with it too. I collect baseball cards. I have some iconic basketball cards, but I didn't want to go out and spend $10,000 for a Michael Jordan, basketball card. But yes, I love having it so I can tell the story. Yeah. And every time I tell the story and show them about this card, I also follow that up with the story of the Larry Bird Magic Johnson card every time.
Where did you get that one? You said it was a guy that was hard up for money. How long ago was this?
I wish I had my best friend here one of my best friends to tell you. This guy's 10 miles away, and I didn't know him for Adam. I didn't know him at all. And then I saw it on a website and saw that he lived close and he was selling these cards, and he got offered more. But since I could get over there in no time, he took my offer. Well, I don't know him, so I go get the biggest buddy that I have, and he gets in the car with me, and he goes, what am I doing? And I said, well, you're just going over here looking big. So we pull up like we're making some kind of arms deal, and get out, and it's hush hush kind of thing. And I hand him some cash, and he hands me that card. My buddy stays in the car the whole time, but of course when he gets back to tell other friends, that it's funny when he tells it, but I got it from 10 miles away from me in a real small town.
See, and that
collector.
That hearing that part of it, how the story of how people got the cards is sometimes for me as enjoyable as the card. Like that is outstanding. Now I'll show another one, and you mentioned on it earlier too. So this is my Rogers Hornsby that I bought, my 33 Rogers Hornsby, the Fielding, the Gowdy. I bought this in Strongsville, and the dealer had a 5, a 3.5, and this 3. And I was sitting there with Darren. I was there with another friend too, and we were looking at the card, and we were looking at all 3 of them, and they were looking at them with me. And the card, we all 3 liked the 3 better than the 5 or the 3.5. And I think it looks great. The color on it is fantastic. It's hard to see through these cameras that we're showing them. But the thing that I really like, and you can kind of barely see it at the very top there, is it's got rubber band marks on it. It's got them. It's easier to see on the bottom right there. You can kind of see the rubber band marks on the screen, and and to me, that character to the card, it's part of the history of how old the card is, how people cared for cards then. Like you said, you talked about your newspaper route and how that provided you with all the rubber bands you needed for your card collection. And it's like that, the new cards don't have any of these things. Modern cards, they literally, you'll see these guys, they'll wear gloves as they open the pack. They'll pull the card out. It'll immediately go into, a sleeve and a top loader, and it'll never see air ever again, except for when it's getting graded and then slapped. And it's never actually enjoyed or touched, like physically touched. And a card like this has evidence of how it was stored, 90 years ago. And some people do see that and they go, oh, no, I don't want that card. It has rubber band marks. And I look at it and I go, I think a card's cooler because it has rubber band marks. It's got more of a story to it because it's got rubber band marks. And again, when we started here almost an hour ago, it was sort of like, I think the main reason that we thought it would be fun to talk is not to give people permission to say, hey, your cards don't have to be perfect for you to love them as much as you love them. But in a way, it's like, just know you're not alone if you have cards that aren't perfect, but you just absolutely find joy in them. Because if all we're doing is, like the first card that you pulled out, you immediately started pointing out all the flaws to it. And it's like, but you're also able to see past the flaws and actually enjoy the flaws. And in some cards, like, I'll give you an example. A card that I really want is a 48 Bowman Yogi Berra. I've wanted it for a long time. And there's one for sale right now that's in a 3.5. And it's got heavy rounded corners, very heavy rounded corners. And there's another one that's for sale right now that's a 6. And it's super sharp and it's really nice. Like, it's really nice. And part of me keeps going back and forth between which one would I rather have? Now, obviously the price of the 6 is going to be much higher. But I could make the argument for me, for just me, not for other people and what they want to collect, that 3.5 with the rounded corners is more along the lines of what I think that I want than the 6. Now, the 6 is going to be rarer because there aren't a lot of those cards that are still sharp. So from a future value perspective, the 6 has a lot more upside than the 3.5. But for me, looking at the card and enjoying it, I could genuinely tell you, I've gone back and forth because I'm like really thinking about if the National wasn't in a month and a half, I probably would have bought one of these two cards right now. And I keep going back. I keep going, nah, I think I want the 3.5 because I like the character. And then I go, no, I've waited this long for one. I think I want the 6 because it's really sharp. I'm not going to see one that nice again in a long time. And I go back and forth. And I think it's okay if somebody sees the 3.5 and they like it more. And I think it's okay if somebody sees the 6 and they like it more. And neither person's wrong.
Agreed. Now, can you go a step farther though? I remember talking to a baseball collector at one time, and I did this drill, and I put up a 53 Mickey Mantle in a 4, and I put a 53 Topps Mickey Mantle in a 1.5. But on top of that 1.5, I put $3,000 on there. Okay. Because that's how much the 4 was worth more than that in the 1.5. So if I offered you a chance to get that Yogi Berra that you're talking about in that 3.5, plus add $400 or $500.
It's probably 1,000 more.
Okay. So you take that 3.5 and put $1,000 on top of there, or take that 6. Now you can take that $1,000. You can do a lot with that $1,000. We can also buy you another card.
Yeah.
So which one? There's not an answer to this.
No, there's not a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but would I reach out toward that 3.5 and that $1,000? I would. I would say if you picked up that 6, I'd say, man, you got a beauty of a card.
Yeah.
And I would not say, man, I got a 3.5, but I also got $1,000 that you don't have.
Yeah.
And I want to show this next card right now if I can.
Yeah.
So I know we've been long-winded on here, but you're known
That's my
for
story.
Right?
That's what I do.
Yeah, this probably go on one of your shorts to tell you. So I live in a Civil War town. Okay, small town of 1,200 people, and there was a Civil War battle here, in a late battle in the war, and in Middle Missouri. And when we moved to town, there was a couple that had this nice historic house that all the kids knew. The kids used to go over there and play. All the kids growing up played basketball on the front driveway, which is basically on the highway that goes through town. It's a wonder no kid got hurt, but it's a famous kind of house. Well, that house was hit with 17 musket balls of a certain size and 3 mortar shells. And the couple that owned it, it had been in their family for over 100 years. And they were living in it, and they were moving to another beautiful home. But this one had stairs. There's different reasons why they were moving. And they sold us that house. And we could have gone in and fixed those walls and made those walls nicer. We could have bought a different house. And we ended up buying a different house later on, but we could have bought a nicer house. We could have fixed that house up just like the couples that's next door. That I think it took the integrity. It would have taken the integrity out of that house, out of that walls. When somebody would come over, I'd show them a door that says, "Look where this bullet hole is." This was a center of attention in that battle. And okay, let me show you where the mortar hole is right here. Glossed over, but still prevalent. And when I look at this next card that I have, that's how I look at it. We didn't change anything to the house. They had a nice kitchen. They updated that, different things, of course, but they didn't take away the integrity of the house, because that house is still telling a story, and it's harder for that house to tell a story by removing some of the dings and the broken stuff. And so I got this card, and I'm very proud of this card. And I've kind of, I've talked about it a little bit, but not really how I felt about it. But I'm going to show you now a T206 Ty Cobb bat off shoulder. And it's a PSA 1. And if I take away my eyes and just take away in general, this might be the most beat up, not ugly, but most beat up one. It's got paper loss. I want you to look at this thing. Every corner has something to it. But when I look at this thing, I kind of think of that house. Somebody didn't take great care of this, but you don't know what happened, because the card's not crumbled up. It's not wrinkled really. But it's got 4 prominent paper losses. And I just crack up because I got another one, a bat on shoulder that's in a 1 also, that, if we are going by aesthetics, that other one looks a lot better than this one. And I just think when I think of this card now, I think of that house. And I could I could buy a better card than this now, but I remember getting it at the local card shop that he ran in. Some guy brought in a ton of T206 stuff, and he said, "Do you want this thing?" And I said, "Sure." And he even looked up what a PSA 1 was, and he said, "I can't sell you this for a 1." He said, "Look at this, look at this." Next thing you know, I get that card, for $600 maybe. And there's a lot of people out there that would not buy that shaped card for $600. But then also that same person that won't buy this card for $600 is going to look me in the eye and say, "I'm waiting on a better one. I'm waiting on a better one." Well, I'm not. I got it. It's off my list. I got it. It's not in great shape, but you know what? It is my card, and it is my T206. And not only is it just a T206, it's a T206 Ty Cobb. So when you ask me, "Hey, Chris, do you got a T206 Ty Cobb?" I say, "Damn sure I do." Right?
That's a great story, and I love the house comparison. And it is sad. It is sad that somebody would come in and fill in the history on the mortar holes, and the musket walls, and to me, when people ask my opinion about like restoring old cards, like to me, that's what you're doing. You're taking this old relic and you're taking, some, more, some, some sort of filler, and you're filling in the musket holes on the side of the house that was in the Civil War battle. And now you've erased the history of what it is. And there's a charm to that Ty Cobb, just like there's a charm to that house. And by quote unquote restoring it, some people see it as they're restoring it and they're making it nice. And I see it as you're erasing the history of it.
Agreed.
If somebody doesn't want a card that has, or a house that has holes in it from a Civil War battle, or a card that has paper loss, that's okay. That's okay that they want a different copy, but it's just as okay that somebody does want those things and it is okay with those things. And you may not seek out a card that has a lot of deterioration to it, but when you get one, you either get it and you embrace it, or you don't get it. And the person out there who gets it, they didn't make a mistake. They made a choice because they see something in it that other people don't see. And that's my real big takeaway as we wrap this up for me, is there really is no right or wrong way to do this. And if you want to go for high grade stuff that has high upside, and that's your thing because you want very nice specimens of, these old cards, I totally get that. And I totally respect it. And I totally respect if you have your opportunity to get a T206 with a bunch of paper loss. I totally respect that as well. And both of those things are equally as cool to me. And that's not me not having an opinion. That's me having an opinion that both things are good, but it's in the eye of the beholder. My wife probably has friends that looks at me and says, "What did you do that for?" and other friends maybe say, "Hey, good choice there," So it's all in the eye of the beholder. With that said, what last words do you have, Chris?
Well, when we began this, I said the term fit. And these cards fit in my collection. They might not fit in somebody else's collection, but that is okay. I just wanted to share why some of these cards do fit in mine. Just like you say, it is okay. Now, my wife, my wife had to look past a lot of stuff to choose me. She could have chose. She didn't get in trouble with the law, and wasn't her punishment. And she could have looked, she had to look past a lot lot of things to fall in love with me. And, and I look past a lot of things for my collection, but, I fit with my wife, and these cards fit with me. And I really, really, truly appreciate you having me on to discuss this.
Oh, this was a blast. There is nothing that I enjoy more than hanging out with a friend, talking about just thoughts about collecting. It's not even a specific card or a specific year, or this is good, this is bad, this player versus that player. It's just a very general discussion about the hobby. And to me, this is my most fun thing. So I had a blast. If you're still listening, I hope that you are. I would think that you are, because Chris is on here. Let us know in the comments below. Are you a guy who's looking for the high end stuff? Are you a guy who can see past it and see the history in a card and some of the lower graded stuff? And also, are you able to see why someone else would want the opposite? Because that's the hard part, I think, for a lot of us, is we see how we collect and we don't understand that somebody else could want to collect a different way. And my biggest thing here is I understand it, and I really genuinely respect both of those approaches. So if you're out there, you're not alone. There are others that have that same thought. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks again, Chris. Honestly, this made for a lot of fun. I'm glad that you called me yesterday and we made this work. And as always, I have a great time when we're hanging out.
Appreciate you a whole lot, Greg.
All right.